Her expression quickly changed from the guilty one she wore moments ago to one filled with anticipation as she turned to face me. I, too, couldn't wait any longer for the rare treat that was about to happen. I'm Steve. I'm a 32-year-old, single engineer. Ever since I graduated from a technical school with an electrical degree when I was 20, I have been working at my current electrical company. Every day, I commute between my workplace and home, living a monotonous life that never seems to change. I've never had a girlfriend, and I thought that this mundane routine would continue forever. But one day, I encountered an unexpected accident. Believe it or not, as I was leaving work, a car suddenly rushed into the crosswalk at a great speed, despite the pedestrian traffic light being green. Watch out. In a split second, I shielded an elderly man who was in front of me, which resulted in me colliding with the car. In that moment, sharp pain shot through my body. I couldn't bear it anymore, and I laid down on the road, writhing in pain. Luckily, the elderly man I had saved called an ambulance, and I was immediately rushed to the hospital. At the same time, a police car arrived at the scene, and the driver who hit me was taken in for police questioning. Once I was transported to the hospital's emergency department, I immediately received a doctor's examination. According to the doctor's diagnosis, I had a cracked rib due to the impact with the car, and to add insult to injury, I also had a severe sprain in my right leg. It made sense why I was in such pain, but neither of my injuries were life-threatening, and if all went well, I would be able to leave the hospital after about a month. Currently, only private rooms were available in the hospital, so I was set to spend my 1-month stay in the hospital in a private room. My mother from back home immediately rushed to the hospital, and when she found out I was not in a serious condition, she sighed in relief. "Steve, are you okay? I heard about the accident and I was worried sick. Sorry to worry you, Mom, but it seems like I'll be able to leave the hospital in about a month if all goes well. Soon, the attending physician during my hospital stay will come to my room, so I think we can get a more detailed explanation then." Immediately, I heard a knock at the door, so I said, "Come in," and welcomed the doctor in charge. But the moment the door swung open, I was so shocked that my mind went blank. To my surprise, the person standing before me was none other than my childhood friend, who I couldn't forget, Maggie. Seeing me and my mother, she too seemed to be taken aback. Her eyes widened in surprise. I saw your name and thought maybe it could be, but I never imagined that my patient would be you, Steve." "Oh my! Never in my wildest dreams did I think I would bump into you here in the hospital. Who've grown into such a beauty, Maggie. I didn't recognize you at first." In stark contrast to me, who was left speechless from the surprise, my mother started chatting cheerfully. Usually, I get tired of my mother's incessant chattering, but this time, I felt truly grateful for her presence. Truth be told, Maggie and I didn't part on good terms, so I honestly didn't know how to face her or what to say. Maggie, perhaps soothed by my mother's brightness, started speaking in a relaxed manner. "Thank you. I've been working at this hospital ever since I graduated from college. I'm still nervous, but I promise to do my best." After that, Maggie gave us a thorough explanation about the details of my hospital stay. My mother, while nodding and saying, jotted down notes and thanked Maggie with a smile. "Thanks to you, Maggie, I've got a clear idea about what's to come. For now, I'm off to get everything we need for Steve's stay at the hospital. I know we might be a bother, but please take care of us, Maggie." With those words, my mother left the room, light on her feet. As my mother left, Maggie wore a nostalgic expression, as if reminiscing about the past. "Your mother, she hasn't changed a bit, still as youthful as ever. I'm glad to see she's well." While responding to Maggie's words, I couldn't take my eyes off her. She had grown into a stunning woman, with her jet black wavy hair grown out to her shoulders, clad in her white lab coat, and wearing silver-rimmed glasses. Maggie exuded an intellectual aura. Back in our childhood, the lively and vivacious Maggie, now all grown up into a mature woman, made my heart flutter unexpectedly. Striving to conceal my racing heart, I managed to maintain a calm demeanor as I speak. "Thanks, but it's good to see that you're well, Maggie. When we were in middle school, You moved away all of a sudden. It was quite a shock to me and my family. That's right. Without any notice, Maggie, who lived in our neighborhood during middle school, suddenly moved away. Being a childhood friend since our early years, her sudden moving left me deeply upset. In fact, she was my first love. Then, Maggie furrowed her eyebrows and revealed a surprising truth. I'm sorry for surprising you back then. Actually, my mother ran off suddenly with a man who wasn't my father. I suppose your mother, Susan, might be aware of this. To avoid any further spread of rumors, my father and I decided it was best to move to his hometown. I've always regretted that I couldn't say a proper goodbye to you and your brother, Peter. I see, that must have been tough. I sympathize with Maggie's turbulent past, while feeling a twinge of pain at the mention of my brother's name. An inevitable past shared by the two of us resurfaces, but it's something we can't discuss here. Regardless of the circumstances, we have been able to reunite, and I didn't want to ruin the positive atmosphere. Maggie seemed to feel the same, flashing a bright and cheerful smile in the next moment. But now, I've fulfilled my dream of becoming a doctor, and I'm enjoying every day of it. I'm still nervous, but I hope I can help you recover, Steve. That's right. I had always loved this radiant part of her. As I was reminded of this, I nodded and responded, "Thank you." And so, after reuniting with Maggie after 17 years, my stay in the hospital began. By the way, there's a certain backstory to the awkward past between Maggie and me. I have an older brother, Peter, who is 2 years my senior. Peter is an elite graduate from a top university and currently works for a multinational corporation, often traveling overseas. Given our close ages, Maggie, Peter, and I used to play together a lot when we were kids. As I advanced to middle school and entered puberty, I began to realize that I had feelings for Maggie. Hey, Peter, and you too, Steve. I baked a cake with my aunt. Would you like to have some? Maggie, who had been visiting our house frequently even after we entered middle school, came to our room that day with a plate of freshly baked cake. Peter and I, who were playing video games, were thrilled at the delicious-looking cake. Wow, that's amazing. It's like you're a pro. Maggie, you're definitely going to make a great wife someday. Hee hee. Thank you, Peter. My brother was right. Maggie's homemade cake was delicious. But I remember clearly, even now, while I was poking at the cake with my fork, watching the two of them with mixed feelings. You see, ever since we started middle school, the relationship between my brother Peter and Maggie had grown closer than ever before. Maggie often said she wanted Peter to help her study, and they frequently went to the library together. Honestly, I had a feeling that the whole studying thing was just an excuse for Maggie to spend time with Peter. It may be weird for me to say this as his little brother, but Peter was quite the heartthrob, a far cry from an average-looking guy like me. On top of that, my brother, Peter, was excelling in both academics and sports, always being the center of attention for the girls. I thought I was good at studying too, but all things considered, there was not a single aspect where I could beat Peter. Feeling proud of my brother, while simultaneously harboring an inferiority complex towards him, in a way, should make sense. Perhaps even Maggie has feelings for Peter. This suspicion crept into my mind, and one day, I boldly broached the topic with my brother. Peter, you seem to be going to the library with Maggie quite often recently. What do you guys talk about? Peter thought for a moment before answering. Well, Maggie seems to have a crush on someone, and I'm just giving her some advice. Of course, I'm also helping her with her studies. Upon hearing those words, I was shocked. Regardless of whether the person she likes is Peter or not, it's clear that Maggie does have feelings for someone. Despite her never acting like having feelings for someone in front of me, the fact that she relies on my brother for advice may imply that, to her, I don't matter. Just as girls flock to me only to get closer to Steve, I guess to Maggie, I'm nothing more than an added bonus. We've been hanging out since childhood, but perhaps it's time for me to stop having unrealistic expectations and involvement with her. From that day on, even when Maggie visited our house, I made it a point to avoid her thoroughly. My change in attitude was probably too overt. Both Maggie and Peter seemed to sense the strange shift in me. But it's harder to stay close to her knowing that my feelings for her will never be reciprocated. I started to just stay in my room more, saying, I want to focus on my studies. Back then, the only outlet I had was trying to get good grades in tests. However, no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't surpass Peter. Thinking about that made me feel even more empty. In retrospect, I think my mindset was too extreme, and I really regretted continuing to avoid Maggie until we had to part ways abruptly. Being a family with Peter, we were naturally able to return to our previous close relationship. But honestly, I felt that Maggie had every right to dislike me. But she was so warm and welcoming towards me, even after I had abruptly distanced myself. Once again, I felt grateful for Maggie's magnanimity, and I decided to cherish our relationship. Although it was just a month-long hospital stay, I firmly vowed to spend it peacefully and without incident. Thanks to Maggie's appropriate treatments, my recovery after the hospitalization went smoothly. I was full of anxiety at the time of the accident, but at this rate, I should be able to return to work without any problems. My mother, who visited me in the hospital, expressed deep gratitude for Maggie's dedicated work. I didn't know what to do because my family member had never been hospitalized before. But Maggie, you really saved us. Oh, I have a present for you. With that, my mom handed Maggie a handmade bead hair tie with a smile. My mom is a handmade crafts artist and has often given her works as gifts. Every time Maggie receives them, she politely says, "Thank you," which seemed to motivate my mom even more. Believe it or not, my mom even brought a cake that day. Mom, this isn't okay. You can't bring homemade food into the hospital. But my mom, as always, was unfazed. But just a little bit is fine, right? During a break, why don't you and Maggie have a piece? Maggie looked a bit troubled, but accepted the cake, saying, "Well, since you've gone through the trouble, just this once." After my mom left, I apologized to Maggie several times. "Maggie, I'm really sorry. Whether it's the cake or the accessories, it seems like she's making you feel uncomfortable. You don't have to worry about my mom. If it's a hassle, please decline. It's okay." But Maggie, with a wide grin, shook her head. "No, it's not a hassle at all. In fact, I really appreciate your mom's kindness. See, my mom never really cared about our home, so I never got to experience things like making sweets together. But your mom, she's taking care of me as if I were her own daughter for a long time, right? She's the reason why I was able to stay out of trouble during my rebellious phase. I'm really happy to receive these lovely gifts." Maggie's words resonated strongly with me. Maggie had experienced the painful past of being betrayed by her mother, but if my mom could provide even a little support, I couldn't be more grateful. My mom might seem carefree, but she's genuinely worried about Maggie. I now realize how kind my mom really is. However, it might not look good if we keep eating cake in the hospital. With that, Maggie looked around and closed the curtain around the bed. Now, with the curtains closed, we should be fine. Shall we dig into the cake? With that, Maggie, who had been looking a bit guilty earlier, turned towards me with an expression full of anticipation. Facing the rare treat, I couldn't wait any longer. Wow, this is amazing. The fact that I hadn't tasted my mom's cake in a while made it taste even more delicious. Perhaps having Maggie around also enhanced the taste in a way. It truly is so delicious. It's as good as back then. I never imagined that after such a heartbreaking parting, I never expected eating cake with Maggie. As I relished in this happiness, I also felt that with my imminent discharge from the hospital, I should keep my feelings for her under wraps. Having seen Maggie again, I was strongly reminded of how much I liked her, but it's unrealistic to think that a woman as charming as her could fall for a guy like me. If that's the case, it's best to keep it as a beautiful memory. As I was getting ready for leaving the hospital, my brother, Peter, came to visit the day before of the discharge. Apparently, he was coming back to the US temporarily and wanted to check on me. When I heard this, I immediately told Maggie that my brother would be coming to visit. Peter must have been just as shocked by the sudden parting as I was. If they had such a close relationship back then, he would surely want to see her. It's funny, back then I was so jealous of their relationship, but now I even think that a man like my brother is more suited for Maggie. After all these years, I guess I've grown up too. Because I love her, I now believe that her happiness is the most important thing. During the reunion with my brother, Peter was as handsome as ever, and, despite the long time apart, he seemed to be enjoying talking with Maggie. Maggie, long time no see. You've grown up so much, I'm surprised. Peter, it's good to see her doing well. Looking at the two good-looking people, I thought they'd indeed make a great couple. At this point, it's embarrassing to recall how I harbored feelings of animosity towards my brother. But then, he said something unexpected. Remember, before Maggie moved, there was a period where you and Maggie drifted apart, right? At that time, I was really worried about what to do. You wouldn't talk to me and Maggie was panicking. Maggie and I had never touched on the subject before, so I never expected my brother to bring it up so casually. While Maggie and I were taken aback by his comment, my brother suddenly stood up. That's right. I have something to do after this. See you tomorrow, Steve. I'll come to pick you up with Mom. Leaving us in an awkward atmosphere, my brother fled the hospital room. Tomorrow is the day I'm being discharged. Should I apologize about it now? Before I realized it, I found myself speaking to Maggie reflexively. Maggie, I'm really sorry about that time. The truth is, I've always had feelings for you, but I thought that you were into my brother, and that made me behave in such a way. Looking back, it was immature. I'm really sorry. I felt like I was burning with embarrassment, but as soon as I confessed my feelings, the weight on my chest seemed to lift. I was prepared for a crushing rejection, but Maggie's reply was unbelievable. No way. I'm so happy. Actually, I've always had feelings for you, Steve. I was having those study sessions so frequently because I wanted to talk to Peter about it, but I never thought I made such a misunderstanding. Oh, it feels like I took a huge detour. Maggie looked relieved, and I had the urge to hug her on the spot. But considering that we were in the hospital, I restrained myself to just holding her hand gently. It's all right. Even if we took the long way, we eventually reached our destination, right? When I said that, Maggie blushed and gave me the most wonderful smile, saying, "That's true too." In this way, I was able to start dating Maggie officially as soon as I was discharged from the hospital. According to my brother, he too regretted the past. Maggie asked me to keep her feelings for you a secret, and you were suspicious of our relationship. So I was worried about how to respond. Things got complicated, but in the end, it's really good that you two got together. Really, I thought Maggie, a beautiful woman, would be a better match with my successful brother. With that, my brother placed his hand on my head as if to ruffle my hair, and said, "What are you talking about? You're my pride and joy, little brother. Have some confidence in yourself." At those words, I felt a sense of vindication for all the feelings of inferiority I'd been harboring. Thanks, big bro. Now, truly confident, I want to stride forward in life, shoulder to shoulder with Maggie. Watching us brothers, our mother had a proud look on her face. Now that you and Maggie are together, I can't wait to see my grandkids. Mom, you're really jumping the gun. While laughing with my brother, I felt truly blessed to be a part of this family.